Is your business AI ready? Today on the show, I want to talk about the strategic side of artificial intelligence and really ask you some questions to see if your business is ready for AI. My name is Russell Pearson. For the last 30 years, I've been helping businesses just like yours with increasing their marketing, sales, and promotional activities. And artificial intelligence has become a large part of that. Now, why am I talking about AI? Well, it's because for the last 30 years, I've been involved in the digital side of the work that we do with clients. And right through to I was a coder back in the day. And so I understand some of these technologies. And so think of me as a bridge between artificial intelligence and the consulting world, because the Consulting Business Podcast is for consultants and for businesses of expertise. So whether you are a consultant, an advisor, a mentor, or a trainer, maybe even a therapist, these episodes are going to be ideal for you to help you in the growth of your consulting practice. So let's talk about the first thing we really want to consider, which is what is your AI strategy? So why are you considering artificial intelligence? There are all sorts of reasons to consider it, but do you know what is your reason? Are you using it for cost savings? Maybe there's ways that you can actually reduce the amount of time and effort that people are putting in. Maybe there is improvements in the business that you can implement through using artificial intelligence. And really, how are you going to use it? How is it going to integrate with the work that you're currently doing? Does it change what you're doing? And then why does it change what you're doing? A lot of people are actually just following the trend of artificial intelligence and saying, I need to stuff this into my business without asking the question, how does it fit? And so the question for you is, have you got yourself an artificial intelligence strategy? Have you written something out? Now, let's look at strategy in general, because the majority of people, consultants watching this podcast or watching this vodcast, are going to be really smart people when it comes to strategy. So you know that there should be some sort of planning, but you will have seen over the last probably 10 plus years that it's been more difficult to plan for a long-term future than ever before. Back in the day, and we're talking probably 20 years ago, we used to make these 5-year plans, and they were pretty accurate. Going back to even 10 years ago, it was difficult to make a 3-year plan, and around the time of COVID, try and hit 18 months, and we never knew what was going on. So when it comes to artificial intelligence and the curve of the growth curve that we're on when it comes to this topic, I think 6 months is really what we can look at. Now, we might have a bigger, broader plan for things. We might be thinking about our intention for how we might go past that. But I think a clear milestone on what we want to do to implement it or to not implement it, potentially stay out of it and just watch, this is what we need to decide over the next 6 months. So identifying what are the steps that we're looking to implement within 6 months, how are we going to either integrate or watch what's happening, or at least have our fingers on the pulse of artificial intelligence so we can see how it can be doing the things that we want it to do in our business. But the key really is to be clear about what that is. What do we want it to do, and what is our strategy for engaging? Second question is, will it replace people? Again, that's part of your strategy, but the question is, will it replace people, or are you making a decision to be human first or people first? Are we looking for it to replace either team members, contractors, potentially even external pieces of software, or are we using it to enhance those things? Now, there's no right or wrong on this. There's all sorts of reasons why it would make much more sense to replace an employed person with an artificial intelligence if it is ready to do the job. And so my question is, are you going to be replacing people? Have you considered how that's going to be happening, or are you using it to enhance people? Now, if you're using it to enhance them, just giving them tools is not necessarily going to help them out. The tools require training. They need to understand how it fits into their broader world. They need to understand what is it supposed to be doing to enhance the work that they're doing. I am seeing a lot of individual businesses just handing things like ChatGPT to their employees and saying, here, I've given you this tool, work faster, without being clear about how it should be integrating, certainly without giving them the proper training, because usually the people handing over this sort of technology haven't got really clear about how specifically it is going to enhance their people. And so making sure that you are clear about how that's going to happen and get practical with it about what is the specific things that we want it to do for these individuals, and is there a way to measure those improvements or those reductions in cost and time. By the way, if you haven't already seen it, there is an artificial intelligence resource in the show notes that you can click on and download absolutely free that's going to be useful inside your consulting business. The third is, do you have an artificial intelligence policy? Now, if you're an independent contractor or an independent consultant, having that policy may not be as important as if you have a team of people. But even if you are solo in your consultancy, at least having a consideration that ideally you've written out will enable you to decide, like, how do we interact with this thing? What are our do's and what are our don'ts? There's some really smart people I've seen come out lately who have decided that because writing is core to the work that they do and they have skills that are above the average human, that they're going to continue to do that without artificial intelligence, whereas other people are using AI to write for them. Now, it's interesting the way artificial intelligence is going when it comes to writing and copywriting in particular. For some people, it is far better than the copy that they could write. For others, it is far inferior, which means that it's not doing a good enough job. Now, will it do a good enough job? Is there better ways to get it to do a better job? Are there better prompts that we can give it? Is there more information we can give it? Can we give it all sorts of past work that it can actually start to form a voice from? Yes, we can do all those sort of things, but have you considered it? Have you considered what is the thing that we're going to do? What are we not going to do? Have you considered the ethics? You know, there are people that I'm speaking to, especially in the consulting space, that are getting it to do research for them and then using that research to inform their clients. Now, the question is, if you got an intern, because I think that's probably the best way to think about artificial intelligence, it's probably intern level of production quality. If you had an intern hand you research, would you go to the client with that sight unseen, or would you take the references from that research and do a little research yourself? Check those things. See if it is actually accurate to the point of view or the lens that you're looking through. So being clear about how you're going to interact with this technology and how you're going to use the intelligence of artificial intelligence is a massive key. And I think that the clearest one for those who give advice, aka consultancies, is am I going to allow artificial intelligence to define the advice for me? Now, I know that there are people who are going to say, I will never do that. I will never let it do that. But I can tell you right now that in a very short period of time, even though if you are very, very good at what you're doing, that artificial intelligence will supersede your ability to create strategic thought, to analyze a situation and do it in split seconds. And so how are you going to use it to harness or enhance what you've got going? Because the old adage, and I say old adage, for the last few years, this is the thing that people are saying, which is that AI is not going to take your job. The person who can harness the power of AI is the person who's going to take your job. And I wouldn't concern yourself with people losing jobs because of artificial intelligence. I think it's those who are not willing to adapt to a world with artificial intelligence that are going to miss out on those opportunities. But really the policy side is, have you considered it? Have you written down what is it that you're going to do? What is it you're not going to do? What is it you're going to allow from an ethical point of view? And what makes a hell of a lot of sense? I think writing down those things, even if you have a solo business, is massively key. Now, if you have a business with employees, having written policies that are clear and communicated well is going to go a long way to enable ensure that there's not mistakes that are going to be made. Now, I'm going to go back to the early days, the wild west of Wikipedia, for instance, where anyone could go in and type anything onto Wikipedia and change that reference tool, and with a lot of incorrect information. Now, the same thing can happen and does definitely happen through artificial intelligence right now. And so making sure that your team are not using it to replace their ability to do certain tasks, but to enhance those certain tasks is definitely a consideration. So for those who are saying we don't use AI ever, how are you going to enforce that within certain teams? I've seen large organizations put policies out there that are saying we're not using artificial intelligence, and they'll use their IT team to block access to a lot of these AI resources. So what happens? The employees go to lunch, they leave the building, they get their phone out, and they use the artificial intelligence on their phone to do the work that they're going to do for the next 2 hours back in the office. And so be very clear. Number one, obviously I talked about strategy before. How are we going to engage in it? What are our do's and don'ts? And then how are we going to communicate that effectively so that people understand that there are good reasons for doing it this way or that? Number four is, are you AI industry aware? And what I mean by that is you have a certain type of clientele. Now, they might not be in a specific sector or a specific industry, but are you aware of your clients' opportunities with artificial intelligence? Because what we're getting to now, after only probably about 2 years, and I know generative AI has been around for a lot longer than that. I used to actually interview people on it. But what's clear after the popularization of AI is that things have gone a lot faster, which means that industry niches, sectors, industry bodies are coming up with their own integrations of artificial intelligence. And it means that your clients potentially have opportunities to be doing things faster, more effectively. They can leverage the power of artificial intelligence. And are you personally aware of the applications available to help them do that? Now, I say that on purpose because a lot of the people who are working in a consulting space are looking to the future. And so if there are things that are going to speed up the performance, get better results, reduce costs, and a number of other things, then it's clear that you as the consultant and advisor should have an understanding of that in your back pocket so that you can bring that into the conversation. Even if you're not going to talk about it, you still need to consider it in the strategic work that you're doing. So how AI aware are you about specific industry or client applications? And so this is where you need to start researching. This is where you need to be aware, either by spending some time each week to monitor what's happening within the space. Maybe you put certain things into Google Alerts to allow you to know when new releases come available. A lot of this stuff is still cowboy time. It's still very much science fiction, like here's a thing we're thinking of doing, or here's the thing we're about to do. But it doesn't take very long between that dreaming process and the actual application into real world applications that people can use. It takes very, very little time for that to actually come to fruition. So being aware of when it's happening so that you can actually see when the landscape's changing. And I know this is challenging for a lot of people. I know that, well, back in the day when I used to work for agencies, like this was talking 30 years ago, we used to courier things to people, right? And so we would do pieces of work and we would courier them across to a client. And it might take a couple of hours to get there, and then they make some changes, some sign-offs, and then it comes back and that takes another 2 hours. Well, email came in and email changed the game. This is kind of the same thing as far as I'm concerned. It's speeding up everything. And I know for some people that can be a massive challenge, which is why I'm suggesting rather than to avoid it, rather to be scared of it and pretend it's happening over here, la, 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 la. I'm closing my ears. I don't want to hear anything. It's now time to actually at least get involved into a point of awareness so you can understand how it fits into the work that you're doing with clients. And finally, I want to talk about architecture. How is it fitting into the software stack that you've got? How does it fit into the product systems or the production systems that you're using? Does it integrate in ways that it's not just a plug-in or stuck on or an additional thing that you're adding to the mix? Now, I'm not saying that now is the time to invest in big infrastructure. It may be depending on your business, but my question to you is, have you considered it? Have you thought about how these things are going to plug in now, but also to the future? Have you considered the adaptability of the foundation of architecture that you're using for your technical stack? If you haven't, then it may be worth considering that. Now, for some people, I would be advising them that now is not the time to actually invest in big infrastructure, and it may be still a good opportunity to keep these artificial intelligence applications more flexible. Maybe you can have an app that you're paying a little bit of money for over here that doesn't quite integrate yet because you might not be 100% clear about the future of where it's going and how it could integrate even better. One of the things that that really it's painful to watch is when people invest a hell of a lot of time and effort and money on the next shiny thing, only to find out that it's superseded 6 months later. Now, this will continue to get faster and faster, so you need to invest either time or effort at some point. But can you now have an architecture, whether it be a technical architecture or even just the way you do business, in a way that allows for future development but still takes advantage of today? And so that's really the key. Consider how it fits. Consider how it works with what you're already doing. If you already have large infrastructure, have a look. Is there ways that you can use technology to plug into it, this artificial technology, to enhance those systems? And if you can't, and if the system that you've currently got is about at the end of its life, now it's time to really start considering what other options are available. And I think adaptability really becomes the broader word that we're talking about when it comes to all of these things. So interestingly enough, if you haven't already joined the Future Proof Business group, you can actually go to Facebook and find Future Proof Business. That's a free group that we actually run for consulting businesses just like yours, because we realized a few years back that was the big shift that was happening. The businesses now need to future-proof themselves by becoming much more adaptable rather than being fixed in place. And it was interesting to see COVID accelerate that change, and a lot of businesses moved out of their fixed in place offices and have now got much more dispersed teams, and they don't have that centralized hub. And interestingly, that centralized architecture, right? They've now got this dispersed systems. Now, for some people, that has been a challenge when they've gone, well, centralized model is how we've always worked because that's how we manage people in particular. Well, now that we have this dispersed integration of different people, different pieces of technology and software, we need a different way, a more adaptable way to manage those things and to work. So my question for you is, have you considered that architecture, and what is your thinking? So those are just some of the questions you should be asking yourself when it comes to whether your business is ready for artificial intelligence. Now, you may choose to ignore it, and that's absolutely fine if it's the right consideration for your business. As long as you've considered the process, you've considered the opportunities and potentially the pitfalls of not getting involved now, I think that's absolutely fine. We work with super smart people. They know what they're doing. But my question to you is, have you asked yourselves these questions? And if you haven't, maybe now is the time. Also, make sure to go to russellpearsonprograms.com and download the free resource that's just been updated recently, specifically designed for consulting businesses just like yours. My name's Russell Pearson. It's been a pleasure having a chat with you. This is episode number 96 of the Your Consulting Business podcast. Until next time, stay passionate, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.